when we're casting, I usually almost always have some form of a fidget
Oh,
toy
dude,
in
I
my hand.
always am fidgeting, dude. AirPods case.
So
Fucking.
goaded. So fucking goaded.
Yeah, dude.
The new headphones I got, the earphones, they go into the case magnetically, but they also clip onto each other, so you can like that's
Oh,
really
and
fun
then,
too,
dude, the
because they
fidget in the
only
fidget.
attach at like at the narrow long point, so like they click really nicely.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, that's some good shit.
All
Oh
right.
yeah.
Well, hello, yes. Welcome back to the Low Res Podcast, also known as the Returning Episodic Series Podcast. It is 35 degrees today and cloudy. Here's the gnocchi of the day, wherever it is on the screen. This one I did not take today. I don't remember when I took it. It's like at some point. I thought it was a good picture. It's a pretty good picture. It looks kind of like I don't know what the meme is. It kind of has meme potential. There's something, I don't know, the perspective looks funky. So if you want to see
Well,
it,
especially when you consider, sorry, like cat lovers. I mean, I'm a cat lover,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
cats get away with like such lazy meme formats, like some of the most lazy
That's
meme
true.
formats out of any creature out there. Just because the cat itself carries a lot of weight. And I
Yeah.
understand it. I get it. But like that's not where I seek creativity is the cat meme format.
No, yeah, I would agree. Some are bangers, but you're right. The
Some are
cat
great.
carries pretty hard. Anyways, that's the gnocchi of the day. Here's the hat of the day. It is a Tillamook. What does it say exactly? Tillamook Dairy Done Right hat, acquired from the Tillamook Cheese Factory in Oregon. I've been there. No, it's in Washington. I've been there many times. There's a cheese something in Oregon. Doesn't really matter. I think there's also Tillamook in Oregon. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I can't remember where it is. It's definitely it's either in South Washington or North
Yeah,
Oregon.
it's
One
it's
of the two.
Southern Washington or North Oregon. One of the two.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's good. It's really
yeah.
good. Oh man.
I love cheese. Tillamook's Fire, one of the best cheese brands, of course. How are you
Do
doing,
you have a
Richard?
lactate hat? Or before I jump in,
Oh yeah.
do you have a lactate hat?
I
That would
okay.
be pretty epic.
Lactate hat would be really good. I need a lactate
That would slap.
hat. How are you doing?
You would run the.
Oh,
I'm doing well.
finish your riff, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm just feeling extra riffy today. Crud. No, but you run the risk of being the person that like not being able to have dairy has been empowering for a lot of people as of recently. So you run the risk of it like being a personality trait, which is like starting to become trendy online. So
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's
that's
funny.
tough too.
I
It's
yeah,
it's
need
a
the
fine
lactate
balance.
hat and then the oat milk hat afterward. I actually genuinely in the like low res ideas like notes I have, one of them was like try every dairy alternative, including like different
Yeah.
lactase, like for like lactase chewable tablet, lactase swallow pill, like oat milk, almond milk, so like just every dairy because we're both lactose intolerant for context. Um and I like cheese. I like milk. I guess cheese you don't usually need lactase, but um,
I
any
do it because I'm scared,
yeah. How
but
how are you
I
doing today,
understand.
Richard?
I'm good. Speaking of lactate, I made a pizza. And my pizzas have been like Greek
Mm-hmm.
yogurt dough base, which is not as gross as it sounds because it's unflavored Greek yogurt, and it kind of makes the pizza have like the sourdough, like very protein rich
Mm-hmm.
base. So I've been on my pizza dough grind, and it's been good. I've been making some premium
Yeah.
stuff. And I like bulk make the dough and I like freeze it and defrost it like an hour in advance. So I'm making legitimately fresh pizzas like multiple times a week. And that's a good period of life, you know? Because if nothing else, you can fall back on the fact that you've made something delicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm good. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. We'll put here. Send me a picture of the pizza. We'll put it on the screen right here. You make some good looking
Perfect.
pizzas. How am I doing? Great question. Uh, oh man. So last podcast, I remember I said the editing was going well. I was vibing. And it was. And then I hit this like creative wall like last week. Was it last? Yeah, basically last week. Um and that was a little frustrating because I was like making time for work, sitting down to work, and then it was like I had like the yips, you know? I was like, I don't know how to like
Mm.
make this creative decision. I don't know how to move forward here. And it was a very frustrating way to not make progress because I don't know. For me, like not getting work done is always a little bit frustrating. Well, is a lot frustrating. Um, but there's like not getting work done when you're doing something else, you're distracted, you're burnt out, and you kind of can accept it, I guess. Or at least for me, I've learned how to accept that because I understand that, you how you feel ebbs and flows, so you have to tolerate that kind of stuff. But when you're like ready to work and you can't get work done, it's like, oh man, I did everything and then like I can't get over the finish line. That's pretty frustrating. But it started melting away at the end of last week. I wanted to work over the weekend, but I didn't, which I think is fine. Um, and I think things will be okay moving forward. But I really wanted to get a Patreon. I'm like almost done. I've been saying this for a while now. Well, since I hit my creative wall, but I'm like just barely done with the first half of part two, which I wanted to post a rough cut of on Patreon. Well, rough cut of the first half. Um, I'm like so close, but that's the spot that like lasts like 10%. That's where the creative block has been, and it's like like
Mm.
I just want to get something out, but I can't. But some progress has been made, and it's all about getting those footholds in. So I'm optimistic about moving forward with that. Um, but otherwise, I think I have been good. I think I've been feeling good. Um, we'll have some things I want to talk about. But like outside of that, vibes have been quite solid. Is there anything you wanted
Nice.
to?
And how's the weather been?
How's the weather been? Honestly, it's been like Chicago's been super weird lately. Like weather's been super up and down. It's like really cold and then it's never really hot, but it'll go like you'll go from like a low of like 55 degrees to like a low of like 24 degrees in the span of like 2 days. Um, I don't know if that's normal. I mean, I don't think that's normal. I don't know. I've lived here for 5 years, which is weird to think about. Um, but it wasn't like this when I got here. I'll say
Yeah.
that. um,
Before we jump into our topics, can I
yeah.
bring up a surprise topic that
Mm-hmm.
I've only just occurred to me now? Would you be comfortable telling the audience, speaking of Chicago and pizzas, about your Chicago stockpile pizza experiment you pulled?
Okay, this is a good story. I'm glad you prompted this. People love this story. Okay. So, I moved to Chicago like a year before the pandemic happened. Right? Something like that. And when it hit, I was living alone and that was pretty depressing after like half a year. And so I wanted to go home, spend time with friends and family. But before I did that, I had some things I needed to do, including making sure that my fridge and freezer had like no food left in it because I don't want to be away from home for months and just have food like rotting in my fridge. So I like cleared house, but then I needed stuff to eat for like the last week before I was going to take my flight home. So we talked about this while it was happening in real time. I was like,
Yeah,
"What can I?"
we did analysis on it
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Cost.
I said, "What can I get? What food can I get that will let me survive for 1 week, and ideally be economic?" So we weighed our options, and one of the ideas was, oh, I could get like an extra large Chicago deep dish pizza with like like a meat lovers version, and that would have like like 10,000 calories worth of food or something, and I could eat that
For
for
a shockingly cheap price
yeah,
too.
for like 25 bucks or something. So I could have a week's worth of food for like $25. All I have to do is eat Chicago deep dish pizza for every single meal for a week.
Oh.
um
Move over factor.
yeah. Hello Fresh Factor. No. One extra large Chicago deep dish pizza. So that's what I did cuz I thought it'd be
Uh,
funny, right? It's like a bit and I like pizza a lot. Don't do this. It's fucking horrible. you're you're
Oh.
Dude, I mean, I guess this has been obvious to everyone I tell this story to, and it was obvious to me, to be fair, but I wanted to limit test. I wanted to see what I was capable of. Yeah, after like, the third, fourth meal in a row where, and it's funny because with a deep dish pizza, you cut out one slice, that's your entire meal. That's the whole thing. That's all you need.
That's
So I
it.
would just cut out a slice of deep dish pizza,
Oh.
microwave it, and then eat it. And it definitely gets you get tired of it. You get pretty sick of it pretty fast. But I did it, and
Oh.
now I can say that I did it. And I did save a lot of money by doing it. So, I mean, maybe not the most money, but it was fun. It was so that's the Chicago deep dish pizza lore.
God, I haven't thought about that story in so long. And it came up when you brought up. I'm like, oh yeah, right. You do live in Chicago
Mhm.
because we communicate like like our friend group communicates so seamlessly virtually
Yeah,
that
yeah,
like
yeah.
I oftentimes like forget that we're all living in very disparate
Yeah, it's
parts
it's
of
weird to
the
think that
country.
we basically all live in different cities, but like I think the gaming in high school helped a lot with getting used to like, okay, we live in the same place, but we're still communicating online, so it's not that different. Um, yeah. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent. I was just thinking about during the pandemic, before I came back home, when we do the virtual hangs where I was just on like a voice call on somebody's phone for like hours on end, just like you're like going out and about and you're just following me and I'm just like on my on the phone like, hey guys.
You're like, yo, look at this cool rock we found.
Yeah, yeah, just pointing me at whatever is happening. It was basically like a low fidelity, like a autonomous drone type of thing. There's there's a research conference, Kai. It's the Human Computer Interaction Research Conference, the biggest one. They started using those like drone things, those remote, like basically it's like a monitor attached to like a what are those called? The hoverboard.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've seen
And
those.
they started using those like, I don't want to date it too early, but it was pretty early. They were pretty ahead of the curve.
Right,
And you would see
right.
like on academic Twitter, people post videos of like the machine like going up to the microphone to ask a question and then being like, you hear like the robotic speaker of like, hey, Meredith, I'm in Texas right now. Or something like that. Um,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
I've never seen one in real life though. Yeah, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say two things about that. If they're not branding that conference with like chai tea lattes, then they're fucking up. I mean, I'm sure they have to have incorporated it
Yeah.
at
Well,
some
because
point.
they call it Kai, not Chai.
Right. But the spelling's the exact same, right? C H A
C
I
H I.
or
Well,
no?
Chai is CHAI.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
I
I
see.
think
I
I
see.
think you're onto something, and I think they could have the Chai Kai tea latte.
Yeah, something there. And then two, this gets me thinking about like a modern day Seinfeld episode where you know how like Jerry interacts with the bubble boy is like what he
Hmm.
called him? Like Jerry interacting with one of those, although this was probably better suited for Curb, but like one of those machines, like Jerry like works at one of them or something like that. And he's just like super rude. He doesn't follow like the right protocols you need to like interact with someone who's virtual. And
That's
like
funny.
he'll like laugh at a joke and like the guy behind the machine will be like, wait, what was so funny? And Jerry's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. Like
Yeah, that would be a good curve.
anyways.
I love the idea of like you could totally see like Larry like, I don't know, he gets like caught up, they're like, it's discriminatory, Larry, like he's remote.
Yeah.
Larry's like, he's still a person. This is not accessibility. I mean, it kind of is, but
Dude,
anyway.
the icing on the cake with that would be like if the machine is like sitting on his seat or something like that. Like
Oh
they
my god,
have to place it
that's
there because it's
spicy.
too
Yeah,
short. Yeah, he's like, it took my seat.
yeah.
Okay. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I want to start. There's so many places I want to start. Well, okay. First of all, just a shout out to listeners who kind of popped in right away when we posted the last episode. It was very heartwarming to see that there were people who were like excited to check out an episode. Like half a year after the previous one. Um, we were talking about it, but it really helped affirm that like there is an audience for this who like listening. And that's very motivating because, like we said last episode, we felt very voidy for a while. We're just chucking things in the void. We have no clue who's receiving it, but this is the first episode where it feels a lot more tangible. So shout outs to you all. Thanks. All right, second thing. Um, I want to talk about something I'm thinking about a lot, which is I think I want to be on like a normie arc. I've been thinking about it, and well, I'm gonna back up a little bit. So there's this concept that I came up with a while back, which is the normie-coded memer. The normie-coded memer is somebody who has like niche hobbies, interests, whatever, but presents themselves in a way that is very normie. I don't know. People have different thoughts on what the word normie means, but I like the word normie, so I'm gonna keep using it. So an example would be like I think Drew Gooden is a great example of a normie-coded memer because like he made like a video about Clone Hero, right, which is like a Guitar Hero fan game. It's been like a niche hobby for a while, but he presented it in such a normie way that was very accessible to everybody. He like references like old school RuneScape all the time and stuff. These are very I'd call memer style hobbies. It's funny because the language of normie-coded memer is very memer-coded and not normie-coded.
Yeah.
And then later I had this revelation that there is a corollary to the normie-coded memer, which is the memer-coded normie. The memer-coded normie is somebody who engages in like online discourse, is like maybe there's content streams or whatever, but in their day-to-day life, they are engaging in more normie activities. They're not getting down and dirty. They're not in the trenches as much. Like maybe they're on Twitter, maybe they use different social media. They know about memes, of course, but like they have a strong normie grounding. And a good example of that would be someone like Northern Lion, who his job is literally Twitch streamer, like a very memer job, very memer output. But if you listen to what he talks about and stuff, he's like not that he's just an everyday normal guy, but like clearly he's like a family man type of guy. A lot of like what he riffs on and talks about is normie topics in the coding of like memer presentation. I feel like I've been a normie-coded memer for a long time. I think that's how, if I had to put myself in one of those boxes, that's where I was. And I think I want to make the transition to the memer-coded to normie. I think that's where I want to go next. I'm going to take a sip of water. Any thoughts, Rich?
Yeah, no, I have a couple. So to me, memer coded normie is also arguably like I think it's almost I don't know if it's easier. Is easier the right word? Because in the sense that like if you're a normie coded memer, you're having to take your weird stuff. I mean, I'm using weird not appropriately here. Like, you
No,
have to
I
take
think
your
I
niche
think
stuff.
weird is the right word. Like it's
Okay,
weird in
yeah.
that it's not common, right? It's not it's
Yeah,
standard.
weird parentheses positive.
Yeah. Weird
Not weird
hash.
negative.
Like what are those like tone indicators? Is there one for like not rude? I don't know. There's like what is it, like
exactly.
HJ half joking or whatever. Like is there like slash but it's cool or like slash for like no
Yeah.
offense?
Whatever that one is, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So with that one, you have to figure out how to go from very narrow to very broad, which is
Yeah.
honestly pretty hard. Well, if you're a memer coded normie like NL, you can talk about normal stuff, but you have in your toolkit just like different ways of expressing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less intentional and it's more just like, oh, this is the right time to use this phrase. This is the right time to use this slang. So like you still get cred with the in groups of like the memers, but then in your day to day, you don't have to like devote your time and energy into stuff that you have to work on sharing it with other people. People just automatically get it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like the topic is far reaching, so it's all about just massaging it down. Yeah, because well, like for like my videos, because I like to pick like esoteric topics, but I want to present them to a wide audience. It's always a weird challenge of like, how do I take something that nobody, ideally nobody has heard of, but make it something that anybody can learn about. That's like a bizarre. I do think it's quite challenging, and I think the other direction is hard, but it's gonna be easier because you're treading what's how do I want to put it? You're like treading well paved trails already, right? You're not trail building.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
uh yeah, and okay, so I present this idea. And so the way I have started engaging in this is well, one of the main ways is replacing my social media usage with TikTok. Um, and I have a lot of thoughts of on TikTok as a late TikTok adopter because I just straight up did not use the platform at all for years. Not because I have an issue with it, I just wasn't interested. Um, TikTok is well, for one, TikTok is amazing. I don't get the hate. I mean, I get the hate, but I don't think it's justified. Um, but TikTok has because TikTok is short form. I think short form naturally caters to meme or coded normie content better than the other way around because like you have such a short amount of time to make an impression. If you want something to do well, it needs to be like easy for somebody to recognize or tap into. And so I feel like I get the surface level. I don't know. I'm treading on a different plane of like internet memery when before I was like in the trenches. And what's been
Yeah.
interesting is that TikTok has definitely improved my mood about social media. I it's weird. I always hear people talk about like, "Oh, I regret spending time on TikTok. I feel like I'm wasting time on TikTok." Like, brother, if you spend a lot of time on like Twitter or Reddit, like TikTok does not feel like a waste of time because you're like, "Oh, I'm entertained. I'm not angry. I'm not annoyed."
Yeah.
That's incredible. Um but I need to collect my thoughts. My brain is racing on this like this normie arc stuff. Um, TikTok has been great. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. The thing that got me into TikTok was so you remember Tunnel Lady, right? Tunnel Lady
Of
in
course.
the greater DC area, Virginia area. For those who don't know, built a tunnel under her home just manually. This was like a big story a bit ago. Um,
And like meticulously documented the process on TikTok.
yes, and meticulously, yeah, over the course of months, I'd heard about this and I'd heard news and everything, and I'd heard like people talking about what happened. And at some point, I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. I want to know like I want to know like what the nitty gritty of this is. And the only way for me to see it was to like download TikTok and go on her account and just scroll through because there was no better way to get to the source. Um, and that night I like installed TikTok and I've tried to use TikTok in the past, but like the algorithm could never peg me correctly. And so like it would just put me in some hole and then I would be stuck there and I'm like, all right, that's enough meat videos. I don't need more
Yeah.
meat cooking videos,
No
but that's
more.
like all it would show me. So I could
Right.
never get into it. But I downloaded TikTok again, and for like 3.5 hours straight, front to back, from the very first tunnel video up to her most recent video, I just watched every single TikTok, getting the developments over time. I was so hooked. And doing that definitely gave the TikTok algorithm enough data to be like, okay, I know what kind of person this is. And immediately it started serving me like what I would call like weird people who do specific
Yeah.
things.
They're like he's tunnel pilled.
Yeah. Because they can't give me more Tunnel Lady. She's the only one who does that. So they
Right.
have to give me other like people who are doing different things. Um, and I get
You
that.
basically
Yeah.
you basically trained the algorithm by going so deep in that video because in the past
Yeah.
you probably would have gotten frustrated because it would have been like, "Oh, I have to like it's it's mentally exhausting having to like not watch a video or skip over it
Oh
because
yeah.
if it's like 7 seconds, doing that 10 times in a row just feels bad, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Because I remember the first time I tried to use TikTok, I sat down for like an hour, like thinking like I have to train the algorithm, and I was like, oh man, this is not fun, and it keeps showing me stuff I don't want to see. It's like
Yeah.
that feeling when you're on like a dating app and you're not the exciting part is over and you're just in the grind and you're just like,
In
oh
the
okay,
trenches.
check
Yeah.
profile decision, you're like, I don't know. At least for me, I do not enjoy the dating apps, and I know this is becoming an increasingly popular opinion. It's almost the default opinion now, like, oh, dating apps. um but
Well, it's also all part of the enshittification of the internet too,
That's
because
true,
they're
yeah.
designed to keep you like using them. They don't want you to like be off
Hmm.
of it. And I believe Tinder actually owns Hinge. I learned that
Oh,
recently.
really?
Match Group. They own. Yeah,
Dude,
so
Match
they've
owns
they've
everything.
all yeah, they've all like congealed into one thing, and then that parent company is profit driven, so they want to extract as much money out as possible.
Hmm.
So now you need to pay money to be at the top of people's like to even show up to other people. It's not great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great knowing single people because you always get to hear the updates on the dating app meta and stuff. Like, all right,
Oh
where is
yeah.
it now? Like, what's the features? What do people do? Um, like, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day about like ghosting.
Weird flex.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
Oh yeah,
kidding.
I'm not on the apps actually. Anyways, about ghosting because
Mm.
okay, I'm overthinking this. I just don't want to sound rude, but I was basically like, I don't want to sound braggy. I've never been ghosted before, um, and I was like, is like ghosting really that much of a thing? Do people get ghosted? Um, and we were talking like, yeah, I guess over time the ghosting meta has probably like developed enough that like, because I haven't used a dating app in a long time, um, and it's probably that people just are more acclimated to it, so it has become part of the culture of things. I think I remember seeing like a some kind of research paper or something that was about how like if you do like negative social behaviors, they spread. So like this applies like a lot of things, but
Mm.
basically like ghosting would be something where like if you do it to somebody once, that person is now more likely to do it to other people, and the people they do it to are more likely
Oh.
to do it to other people, and it's kind of like a contagion. It'll
It's yeah,
spread.
it's viral.
Yeah, yeah. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because if it happens to you, it like for one, it probably feels shitty, but you're also like a little desensitized to it, and maybe you're also thinking like, I guess this is how things are. Um, oh man, this is a super tangenty. I don't want to get, I don't want to self comment on the podcast too much, but I am realizing how much my mind is going crazy today. I don't know what it is. um.
It's the pizza story. It got us all
Dude, the
riled up.
pizza got us riled up. All right, let me pop back down the stack a couple. TikTok is good. The kids, okay, this is what I want to talk about. The younger generations, okay, sure, like they're entering shitty economy, shitty climate change situation, other things that people talk about like doom and gloom and whatever. I'm not really a doomer type. I understand when things are bad and stuff, but I also think there's a little bit of hubris attached to like thinking that you live in the worst like era of society because you don't know what it was like back in other eras, and you don't know how things are going to be in the
Mm.
future. Um, but people always talk about like, oh yeah, kids, their brains are fried. Oh, like younger generations don't even know how to use computers anymore. Oh, like younger generations, like, blah blah blah. If you all you have to do is go on TikTok and you're like, actually kids are like way better at stuff than like ever before. Like
Yeah.
these kids are freaking talented across every single dimension, and it is in ways that were inconceivable 20 years ago. And it's because I think like the internet has just made like access to types of things and access to like learning resources. Like community, for example, is so much easier to access now because of the internet. And that is so key for becoming like a really good learner, that like these kids are so good at everything, and no, I feel like nobody ever talks about this. Like comedy is going through a crazy renaissance right now, I feel. Like
Yeah.
this shit is fucking funny, man. I'm seeing the funniest jokes I've ever seen in my life on TikTok, and the person is like 18 years old because they've been grinding it since they were 12. Like
Yeah.
I think kids deserve a lot of credit there. And I think TikTok is an excellent platform for showcasing and getting those reps in. Um, I don't know why this is not an angle that people talk about, because I mean, I was making stuff when I was a kid and it was just so behind the stuff that kids are making now. It's incredible.
I'm getting flashbacks to like my Lego stop motion videos, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that would like, oh man, you see it on old YouTube too. Like an old stop motion, like poorly made YouTube video. Well, like some of those from like early YouTube, like 10, 12 years ago, have like 1 million+ views.
Yeah.
And if you were to post that today, it wouldn't even get like, it would get like 10.
Yeah,
It would get like,
exactly.
it would cap at like 200.
Yeah, yeah. And dude, it's so funny because back then it was Lego stop motion, and not even like anywhere close to professional stop motion, like super grimy stop motion. Now it's Lego Blender animations, which
Blender.
is
Yeah.
the
Oh my
floor is
gosh.
so much higher, and yet there are so many more people who are capable of making. I mean, the Spider-Verse kid, right? Like they're the Lego scene in the second Spider-Verse movie is like literally animated by like a 14, 15-year-old or something who just learned Blender on his own.
Crazy.
Um, like
So
that
good.
can't that literally could not happen not that long ago. So we got to give the kids credit.
It also kind of speaks to this broader concept of like change your KPIs, boomer. Like to the strawman boomer that you're saying. Like if you were to
Can you tell
assess
people what
like
KPIs are, because not everyone knows what business terms are?
yeah, sorry. That was kind of business pilled of
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Key performance indicators, metrics that you use to like track progress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, like, if you were to assess how competent someone would be based on if they can use a rotary phone, we would be viewed as like the dumbest generation to date. And some people still probably do that and like whatever, but like you don't need to know how to use a rotary phone. And even if you do ever need to know how to use one, you can just Google, how do I use a rotary phone? It's much more valuable to look up how to find information these days than it is to actually know it off the top of your head.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
mean, that's not to say that like you shouldn't ever have anything ingrained, of course, but like if you were to only use skills that are becoming less and less relevant as a measure of intelligence, then you're just going to think that everyone's getting more dumb.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is interesting as we get older, starting to experience like the middle part of like the generational. It is kind of uncanny how reliable the shift in tone and vibe is at the generational level. And really, when I say generation, I'm just talking age bracket. For me, generations are just a way to talk about the constantly shifting age bracket. Not that there's actually that much sacred about like individual generation breaks or anything. It's just people different ages, for the most part, act different ages. Anyways, but like the millennials are getting curmudgeony, dude, and I do not like it. Like we have to. I don't think we can stop it, but I really thought we were gonna hold the line. I thought it was gonna be
Yeah.
possible, and then you go on our millennials. Have you ever gone on? We talked about this a while, like months ago,
Uh,
right? We went on our millennials, and we're like, why do they
yeah, we
complain?
did like a 1 day visit, and I was so
It
turned
was
off
so
afterwards.
it was so icky, dude. They were like dunking on boomers, dunking on Gen Z, and everyone's talking about this nowadays, but everyone's like dunking on Gen Alpha early, which I think is funny. To see
Everyone's dunking on Gen Alpha, and Gen Alpha's like goo goo gaga.
yeah. I think, what is it? Technically, Well, so pollsters and stuff are moving away from generations. It's becoming less and less popular to group things in generations, but I think Gen Alpha still has like a commonly accepted bracket. I think the oldest ones are like what, 14, 15 maybe?
Mm.
Um I know that like here's something that's funky. The average Zoomer based on like the standard age range is like just about or has just recently graduated from college. Um, which is funny to think about when Zoomers are still like treated as the like young generation. I don't know. Basically, the average Zoomer is just about to become an adult, right? Um,
Yeah.
and that's gonna change. I don't know what I'm saying here, but it's just I don't know. It's funny how generational discourse works because it's so shitty and everybody knows it, but like it's also really fun. I don't know to talk about.
Yeah, it is. It
Um,
is. And it's like it goes back to that quote about how like not all models are like no models are like
all
true,
models
but
are
like some
wrong.
can.
Yes, yes, my
Yeah, thank
favorite
you.
quote. My
Yeah,
favorite quote.
it's a good one.
Um, yeah. Like generations, not a really great way to talk about like society in the grand scheme of things, but man, is it easy, and man, is it easy to be like anyone who's not in my bracket is like wrong. Um,
Yeah.
okay, this.
It
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
surprise me. Oh, sorry, you
I
first.
was gonna say. Well, I was gonna segue, so if you can finish your thought.
All right, yeah. Final thought. It doesn't surprise me that millennials are starting to become like curmudgeon because, and I think honestly, and maybe this is my more cynical view, I think Gen Z is going to end up having their curmudgeon arc too, just
Oh,
because
for
we're
sure.
humans, we're nostalgic, and when you feel nostalgic about something, you want it to go back the way it was, and you look at how stuff is different now, and so your output is going to be to blame some external factor, and that's oftentimes the next or prior generation type deal.
Right. And that's a thank you for teeing me up for the segue because I wanted to talk about how um, I've said this before, but I want to put it on the record so that I can point to it in the future when I'm right because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right. I can't see myself being wrong here. Millennial nostalgia, it's coming. It's been around in like media and stuff because rehashing movies is easy to do. But like the aesthetic of things, like 90s has held really, really strong because I think the 90s look, the vibe is just very, it's clean. I feel like era aesthetics kind of oscillate usually between like tidy and reliable and like a little out there. And following the 90s when you get into like the 2000s aesthetics and stuff, there's a lot of out there, which I think was seen as ugly, like not something people liked for a long time. But I think we're really on the precipice or really have started seeing the incoming wave of the 2000s nostalgia. Millennials are the exact right age, perfect consumer age to pander in this direction. And as we're getting older, like we were talking about just a moment ago, experiencing like the generational waves is interesting because I did not understand how sweet nostalgia hits until I started getting to the age I am now. You can be nostalgic in your early 20s, but when you're like past that, you're hitting your late 20s. Oh my god. And I can't imagine. Oh my, when you're like
Oh
60,
yeah.
I get why old people fucking watch videos of Elvis on loop nowadays, dude. Because that must be the easiest, smoothest flow through your brain that could possibly exist. Those adolescent neural pathways are are really something. um
The kids are like, Grandpa, like your TikTok is only like millennial throwbacks, and you're like, yeah, so.
dude, me just watching Drew Gooden go. What is it? Oh my god, I'm blanking. What's the road works ahead? Oh yeah. Road works
Oh
ahead.
yeah, I
I
sure
sure hope
hope it
so.
does.
Just watching that on a loop over and over again.
They're
Yeet.
they're like when you're on your deathbed, like they're showing you it, and they're like, it's the only time we can get his brain to like activate.
Dude, that's actually gonna be so real. These random influencer TikTok. It's just like this is what gets me. This is what gets me online again. I started saying this a long time, like literally like 10 years ago. I started saying this, but I'm ready to like be like old and dying in like my Minecraft VR world. I remember I wrote this like this little like meme like copy pasta write up, even though I never shared it with anybody a long time ago, where it's like you wake up, the square Minecraft sun basks onto your face. Another day in paradise. You see your other senior homies log in. What's up, bros? You ready? Something like that. Just the like Minecraft VR endgame, spending the rest of your life. Dude, people don't realize that if you're a fucking nerd, Minecraft nostalgia hits because Minecraft came out when we were early, like when we were young teenagers.
Yeah.
Um, because we started playing like in alpha beta era. But Minecraft like popped off like culturally, like so far beyond that people associate Minecraft with like kids. But man, if you were
Yeah.
if you were a nerd, Minecraft is like that has some crazy comfort flows in my brain there. Uh
Yeah.
yeah.
Minecraft is so interesting too because it was like early adopter, then it was like massively exploded, especially over COVID, and
Hmm.
now it's just kind of like endemic in our society.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know Minecraft, you're like, where are you living under a
Yeah.
rock?
You
Like
you
it's
missed
it's normie now.
you missed a step there too. It was niche, popped off,
Mm.
cringe, then the
Oh,
pandemic come
true.
back, and now it's just like we're like, all right, Minecraft is part of society now. Minecraft is part of the world now.
Totally.
Um,
Totally.
oh my gosh. I also just was like, I think TikTok dances and stuff are like we're talking about this a little bit pre-pod. Um like yeah, it's cringe, yeah, it's weird, but I'm like very pro dancing and just like vibing and moving. I used to tell this story that like changed how I saw dancing. Which so when I was in college, I used to teach kids how to code, right? And something that I and we use Scratch. And for people who don't know, Scratch is this block based, so not text based programming language specifically designed for kids to learn how to code. Super accessible, and the Scratch platform has like a bunch of like assets that kids can use right out of the box, and they can also create their own. And something that Scratch, some of those assets that Scratch has are like these preset like songs that you can include in your program, whether it's a game or a movie or whatever. And they're not really amazing songs. None of them are bangers, but time and time again, like certain songs would trigger this like primal reaction in children where they would just squirm and move to the music. Like they physically could not restrain themselves. They had to dance. Um and seeing that happen time and time again, I was like, there's something important about dancing here. Like this is an expressive like outlet that is inside of us, and we need to be like respectful of the fact that some people just need to dance. um and so when I see TikTok dances and stuff, I'm just like, yeah, teenagers can be goofy and cringe and silly or whatever, but I'm glad that this is their outlet. I'm glad that this is
Totally.
how they're doing it. Because I think it's something about it is good. I can't really tell you what it is, but in a hand wavy way, I think this is good. Like when Fortnite was popping off and all the kids were doing Fortnite dances, you go in public and you just see some kid flossing. I loved that era because it
Yeah.
gave kids these tools so that they could access dance accessibly, right? It's like here are
Yep.
dances that you can learn and that you can do to like do that outlet. Like when I dance, I fucking suck at dancing. I don't know any dances besides like, oh, I can disco, but discoing doesn't feel good. It doesn't shape, it doesn't
Yeah.
your core doesn't groove. I don't so I just do the like indie rock concert like vibe thing. I'm a jumper too, but as I get older it gets
Yeah.
harder.
It's so true. I don't jump as much in concerts anymore.
I
I'm
know, oh
like
my
my
gosh.
knees.
And I used to jump in track and field. I did long jump and high jump, so I had those I had those powerful quads that I've dipped away. Speaking of quads, um,
Mm.
YMCA updates. I want to start giving YMCA updates because I go to the Y to exercise. I think way back in one of the earlier podcasts, I talked about wanting to start cycling. And then I tried it and I never did. Except a month ago, I tried it again and for whatever reason, it like hit. And I'm like very into the cycling right now. Every single time I've gone to the gym, I just cycle. I'll I'll watch just Netflix on my phone and I'm just cycling. I was enjoying it so much that last week, for the first time in a long time, I went to the gym because I just wanted to get on the bike. It was when
Oh,
I
let's
discovered
go.
some like funk songs and stuff. And I don't listen to like a lot of electronic genres, but I was like, okay, I'm like really like I just need to do something with this funk, you know? So I got on the bike and for like the entire time I was just like, yes, like let's go. I'm gonna gas myself out so hard just listening to this funk, and that's exactly what I did. um, oh my gosh, yeah. So cycling has been great at the Y. I like to go to the track that like oversees the basketball courts because I used to run and walk on that track. And there's a bike there too, even though that's not where the bikes usually are, but there's like one bike there. And so I can bike and also like spectate the like basketball courts and what's going on there. There's there's three things that are usually happening when I go to the gym. Some of them simultaneously, some of them like not. There's the high school kids who play basketball with each other slash practice basketball. There's the old people who play pickleball, and then there's the like daycare, not daycare, like after school pre kindergarten like programs where they just have the kids do whatever activities you have kids do. I don't know, tell them to line up. Stuff they're in lines a lot. They did the parachute the other day. I was like, oh hell
Oh,
yeah,
throwback.
let's go.
That's awesome.
Um, and watching all of those things develop over the course of months has been great. Like the pickleball, I'm getting really tempted to start trying out pickleball, because it looks pretty fun. And the basketball is really interesting because I'm starting to eye like which kids come frequently and what their skill sets are. Um, I was live messaging the other day from the bike. The court was full, which doesn't, or the court was empty, which doesn't usually happen. So a group of high schoolers were playing 5-on-5 full court basketball, and it was so funny because one team was all shooters and they had no other skills. They only shot threes. I think they shot 1-2 the entire time, but all shooters. And they don't know how to like shoot if it's not an open shot either. So like they're honestly those kids were sinking a lot of threes if they were open and missing every single three that was defended. And the other team was like all practical skills. So like lots of defense. Like every time there was they stole the ball so many times. Every time there was a fast break, they would just run it down the court and lay up. One kid, I'm pretty sure got 20 points only off of just layups. Because every time he got
Dang.
the ball, they couldn't defend him and he just lay it up. And I was like, wow, this is a very interesting contrast.
This sounds like a very similar premise to your last YouTube video. Like
Which one? The
fast versus accuracy or
it
like but like
actually
all shooters versus all
that is
defense.
actually what it was. And just like in the same conclusion, accuracy was a lot better than speed. It definitely was. Um, yeah, I was thinking like if the Y was an arc, how would I progress it if I was a character? And I was like, honestly, I would never do this normally in real life, but going down and like chatting with the high schoolers and being like, so like, what are your basketball goals? Like, what are you trying to do with this? It would be really interesting. Because they're not all trying to get good at basketball, so it's fine if you only want to shoot threes. But it's interesting. Like if you're gonna play a game, like you gotta understand that you're not gonna win if that's all you do. Um, but yeah, the Y has been fun. TikTok's been fun. Oh, I've been running my mouth like crazy, Rich. Fill the air. I gotta take a break.
So one of the things that when you were talking about that kind of got me thinking was like obviously I started picturing you like tutoring and mentoring kids playing basketball, and it got me thinking like if you are just teaching people how to learn, like there's obviously inherent value in that. And then that got me thinking like there are like really good coaches out there, like I think like Phil Jackson, and like it got
Mm,
me wondering like how many of these coaches have stumbled upon unintentionally like learning principles and have incorporated that, because these guys are never better at basketball than any of their basketball players,
uh-huh,
at like
uh-huh.
an ultra high level. Like, I mean, maybe in their peak they were like decent, like Steve Kerr, for example, like played.
Yeah,
But like,
yeah.
how many of these people have just stumbled upon like sports coded learning type deal, you know?
That's a great question. I have an immediate answer, which is that for the most part, people who coaching is a great example. Any kind of mentor role, they almost always uh, are, whether they realize it or not, instilling like good learning habits and stuff. I think the thing with learning is that like it is so experiential that you will just figure it out over time. That's not the most efficient way to go about things, but a lot of what we know about learning comes from the fact that people have been learning for so long. It just took quite a while to start formalizing the process. Like learning science is an extremely young field when it comes to like academic disciplines, which is odd, but we've been learning as like as humans for centuries and centuries, just not always in the most effective way. But yeah, like if you're a coach, especially a coach for a long time, you will start noticing what works and what doesn't work,
Hmm.
and those are often going to be pretty in line with like what is good learning. Now obviously that doesn't case for everything. There are people who are, like have mentored for a long time and have like gaping issues in how they do instruction and stuff, because inherently your psyche is going to butt heads against doing the right thing sometimes. um but there's a lot to glean from people who just have a lot of experience observing and engaging in the learning process in and of itself. I think there are a lot
Hmm.
of people who have never formally studied learning in their lives who probably know just as much, if not more, about learning than people who have like intensively studied it formally. Um, yeah, yeah, because you just learning is weird. I need to do a learning video one day. It's just such a big, massive topic, and I really don't want to do one where I have to like cite things and stuff. I just want to say how I feel about learning, but that feels kind of weird.
Hmm.
But there is a huge like ambiguous space to it. It's so, I don't want to say it's pseudo scientific, but you are definitely, if you want to get the fullest out of learning, you're gonna have to tap into this area of knowledge or understanding that is not and almost cannot be uh treated systematically or logically. Like you have to be mystical about it to some extent, not because it literally
Hmm.
is unknowable or mystical, but because it's so like the brain is, we're never going to fully understand the brain. It's I mean maybe, but there's like always going to be this irony to the fact that like the brain is so complex that it can't like understand itself, because to understand itself it would need to be more complex, but if that was the case it wouldn't be able to understand itself, right? um and maybe with technology we overcome that, but I don't, I personally don't see it happening, at least not in any reasonable time scale. um
Yeah.
so Yeah, that's that's my answer to your question. These people definitely they definitely know about learning. Um, Gosh, there's so much more. We didn't even start to talk about Balatro, Rich, and there's so much to talk about with Balatro, and just I think there's a deck builder renaissance going on. You know what I mean? I think we're in a really good time for deck builders, and I love deck builders, but we'll save it for next week, I think, because I'm getting a little bit tired. Any other last thoughts, Richard?
Final thoughts. Just yeah, this was definitely a very high energy episode, and to the listener, this is kind of what it's like being on a Discord call with Rich and Rich
Yeah,
and Rez.
that's very true. You know, I didn't mention this, but I did think this before the podcast. I was a little tired. I was feeling tired, kind of sleepy before the podcast today, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna be pretty chatty." Because when I'm tired, the more tired I am, the chattier I get. Like if I'm on like 2 hours of sleep, I will run my mouth nonstop. I think it's just I'm guessing it's just my brain trying to stay awake or something, or like the
Yeah.
dopamine gulf is wider, and so I need like a bigger way to cross it. But this was definitely a me being tired type of energy.
Rez is tired. Positive forward slash negative. Mostly positive.
I think it's fine. Yeah, yeah. I think that the consequence is it's a little more chaotic. I definitely had many times during the pod today where I was talking and then midway through the thought I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going and I don't remember where I came from.
We tied it back. We kept it back. There were some big deviations, but
Yeah, yeah. I think
I
we
think
did
we
our
got
best.
there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Do I have any?
So chaos.
Oh,
Today was chaos episode. We
today
love
was
it.
chaos. I'm trying to think if I have any other last thoughts. Any last things? I'll do I'll have a parting thought for the end. Well, maybe we'll just use a different thing each time. Um, I believe, and I feel like this has been proved to me time and time and time again, that basically everything is always harder and more complicated than you think it is. Both things that you do and things that you don't do, but especially things that you don't do. If you ever look at somebody who does something, especially somebody who does something professionally, and you think to yourself, oh, that's easy, anybody can do that, I can almost like 100% confidence tell you you're probably wrong. Maybe a lot of people could do that. Maybe, I mean, a lot of stuff is genuinely in range for a lot of people. Um, your capability is quite high as just an average human being. It's all a matter of how you allocate your time and your effort. Well, not all, but it's a pretty tremendous factor. Um, but even still, I have yet to see something where I'm like, oh, that's pretty easy. And then I try it and it's even remotely close to how easy I think it is. I've never seen it and I've never seen somebody prove me that wrong. I mean, yeah, there's gonna be granularities here, but you should assume that when people do things, it's challenging in some way, in a way that's unique to that thing. I think it'll give you some uh, it's good to humble yourself a little bit, and I think it's good to give credit where credit is due. That's my final thought. Thanks for joining me today, Richard.
My pleasure.
All right, and goodbye now.
Goodbye now.